Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the online advertising seminar for FICOD on programmed purchases and real-time bids. My name is Manuel Ortega. I'm responsible for the business department of the Agencia EFE. Today we have Mikel Lekaroz, who's the CEO of Adbibo, the Adbibo project, and also the Management Council of IAB, and we also have Julien Gardès, who is the Executive Director for Southern Europe for the Rubicon project. And Mikel Lekaroz will now begin with his presentation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Manuel. Good afternoon, everybody. Well, the aim of my talk or presentation is to talk a little bit about programmed purchases, which is beginning to be, and it will be, the advertising model, the definitive advertising model. And so I want to convey a little bit to you what this vision is and the reasons, and also to try and show to you that many of the things that we're doing in the programming world are not perfect. They're not all good. And so I'm going to try to explain for those of you who know less about it, to tell you what programmed purchases are. Very simply, it is a market. It is a market to which people, buyers and sellers, go in real time. How do they go? Through a programmed console. When you connect, you upload the advertising spots that you have available to sell, and if you're a purchaser, on the other hand, the spots that you want to buy, depending on the advertising campaigns that you have available. Buyers and sellers, they get in touch with each other. I was talking with Julien about this, and we calculate there can be about 400 platforms that are connected in real time, buying and selling advertising places. And this is what we sell, the same site as always. The banner, there are other formats. Of course, we can sell video, we can sell schemes, brandings, and all kinds of formats, expandables. All of these things can be marketed within the programmatic or programmed world. And the first big difference with regards to traditional online sales is from stopping to sell headings to audiences, from selling groups and packages of advertising spots, which has been the traditional way of selling advertising, selling spot or print by print. The process of purchase is done for each one of what we calculate to be 35 million, which is the number that can be sold every year. And this process I will explain quickly, but it is repeated every time for those 35 billion prints or spots. This is important because now we don't buy the cover of El Mundo or El País newspaper. We buy users, individual users. We buy unique audiences. How do we do that? Through a model of a bid, and we call this the real-time bidding, and we'll see that the programmatic buying is called RTB, and RTB is the technology that we use in order to bid for a print when a single print has very purchasers. Each purchaser makes their offer for a bid, and whoever bids most takes that print with them. And that is a process which is almost real time. There are 150 milliseconds that you take since the presentation of an application for a bid for an advertising spot until you decide the campaign where it's going to be published. And this is the traditional model, the traditional advertising model, which can be okay for the offline world, and it can be used also for the online world. We have the advertisers, we have the agencies, we have the supports and the sites, and each one and all of them have a direct connection. They talk to each other directly, and they relate directly and personally in order to buy and to sell those printing packages that we sell. And so what is the difference? This is a world exchange. It's a whole ecosystem where you can find all of these 400 platforms where advertisers, agencies, and media, and another essential element, data, this is what I'll try to explain at the end, mean that this ecosystem works through this purchases and sales of advertising prints. The traditional world began with sales and purchases from agencies to advertising. In other words, they had this direct mechanism of purchasing and sales, visiting, proposal, the mechanism that we're all familiar with. And then in 2005, more or less, the first ad exchange was created. This was created by Ray Media, which was subsequently bought by Yahoo. And that was the first time when you had the buyers and the sellers in an automated way, which is the system which decides the advertising which is going to come out. The ad exchange began to grow, and then the trouble grew, and then Google bought it, and they began to see each other. And after a short time of the growth, the specialists arose in the buying and in the selling. The DCPs are the buying specialists, and they optimize the buying of the campaigns for their advertisers. The SSPs, with our self-sale platforms, are those specialists for the optimization of the sales of the advertising sites of the publishers like Rubicon, for which Julien works, and this is one of the main ones in the world of SSPs. And over time, we have seen the arrival in the ecosystem of data management platforms, DMPs, and data exchanges. And those are the ones who buy and sell data, so that to grease the system, to give quality to the system, to know the audience for which we are bidding. And this is a very, very quick vision of the world and the ecosystem of the programmatic world. Now, to change the subject a little bit now, there's an important question in all the business models that we have seen. I think that many digital businesses have not really been able to make the most of the functionalities and the strength of digital technology. They considered that with just a .com they were there in internet, and that was enough. They had the model, and they didn't think they had to develop any more business. But the truth is, under this supposition, internet doesn't really work. You don't buy, you don't sell, and you don't optimize the services just with this. And so it's not a real model. I think there are many examples of business models that have taken a long time to adapt. The contents of audiovisual contents is one of them. We've gone from the sale of CDs and a transition until we have got to access to music. We've gone for the purchase of ownership to access with solutions like Spotify or other solutions. But we have been we've had 15 years since we conceptualized the exchange. I think the media are adapting, but it has taken them a long time to adapt the online model, trying to adapt their offline model onto online. And this is why I'm telling you how the advertising model online has suffered also. Tim Berners-Lee in 1980 developed the first concept of a website place where graphically you can access information. This happened in 1989. And then shortly after that, obviously, the number of companies, a significant number of companies, found a usefulness, a commercial usefulness to internet. That was the first time. That was one of the first times when they found a marvelous concept of which brands have always looked for, and that is the medium itself. To have a medium where users access in order to communicate, and then the incipient advertising market arose. And 2004 really was when the first conceptualization of banners. They were in HTML, and there were no conversions or clicks. It was you charged a fixed amount per month, but that evolved, and when it began to evolve, the procedure of advertising hiring was based on the procedure which ruled at the time, which was television press, but particularly television. There, digital arose, but the television model and the procedure for advertising hiring on the television world was the one that was implemented in the digital world. And this meant that a lot of things were inherited. For example, based on the way of measuring audiences on TV is through audience panels. It calculates and to see the browsing, the TV consumption of a group of the population in order to extrapolate to the total. In the digital model, we did the same, measure a panel of online audience. We measured 20,000 homes in Spain, and we extrapolate to the rest of the population about the size of the audiences that each one of these mediums has in Spain. And that is the inheritance with regards to measurements. Another big inheritance is the heading. We bought headings in television and online also. We bought portables, we bought newspapers or any digital resource as a heading under a premise, and that is the premise of the concept of prime time. It is more expensive the more audience you have. I charge more or I pay more when I have more users. And then we have the third inheritance, GRP. The television advertising is based on impacting the users massively, almost indiscriminately, in order to ensure and repeat the steps to ensure that our target audience will see us. And that same model has been extrapolated to the internet GRP, IGRP, and that is why some traditional advertisers on TV have begun to invest online. That's positive, but I don't think that is really making the most of the full potential of the digital world. Another inheritance, and I don't want to be controversial, but it is rappel, a kickback, an extra bonus, that percentage that an advertising or a company or an agency does on a resource, but it means that it comes back at the end of the year, depending on the investment. In television, we talk about 3 or 5% of investment, and in the digital world, it's more than 25%. And what are the big differences that there are between the traditional means, the traditional media with the digital media? Traditional, it has limited, it is finite in traditional media. I've got a picture. This was the idea that I had, and the media are limited and finite because, for example, by law on television there's a number of limited time for advertising per hour by law, and on a newspaper, on paper, it's the same. You can't fill the newspaper with paper, reams of paper of advertising. The difference is that on the internet it tends to be infinite. Digital world has more and more users every day who connect with more devices that go quicker and with more websites every time with more and more content. So this means that the digital world tends towards the infinite, the sites, the number of advertising places, and that means that any economic curve, we're at a moment and in a situation where the supply of advertising sites is more than the demand, and this has two very clear consequences. Well, there are many clear consequences. One is the deflation of prices. Prices have constantly gone down, as this Morgan Stanley survey shows on CPMs in the United States. The CPM has constantly gone down in the last 15 years, and it is expected that it will continue to go down. The other consequence is that the rappel, as I mentioned before, has gone up. On the other hand, they are more than 20% in order to begin to work with many different agencies. And another big difference between the traditional media, like the press and the online world, is that television is a branding world. It's always been like that. It's a place where you publicize, where you advertise in order to create notoriety and to get known. The online world has gone from branding to direct response, to performance in campaigns and results. And when another important difference is that the digital world, everything is connected. In the digital world, we have thousands and millions of supports on media. So we have 50 billion devices that are connected in the digital world, connected and managing and working, operating, running, selling, clicking, buying, And this constantly generates data, and this is really made very little use of up until now. How do we pick up all this data? Through cookies. Cookies are the way that we currently have now to get to know audiences, to know whether a person is a man or woman, whether there's one profile or another where there's just an interest or an intention. I think we can debate about cookies. There's a lot of debate about cookies, but I think cookies, first of all, you have to be informed. The user has to be clearly informed about who is getting those cookies and for what, and I think they should be the option of not accepting the download of that cookie. So there should be an opt-in and opt-out, and you should be able to use the services with or without cookies. And this is a long debate, but it's not the subject of this debate. But I think that cookies in the data are fundamental in programmatic advertising. And there's another element that's very important, which is device control. In television, we don't control anything. We cannot control the device. We cannot limit the functionalities of the device. However, in online, you can. What is the difference? And the consequence is this. This is the El País page from yesterday, the El País newspaper with advertising, and this is the same El País page without advertising through the ad blockers. People are bored of this advertising service that we have, and a large number of young people, and it was said in the survey, 40% of young people have ad blockers installed. I don't want to ask you here, just in case you feel embarrassed, but that people are quite fed up really with the reiterated and repetitive advertising model. What is the solution? I think the programmatic world, has been coined, as the expression has been coined, is the way of working in advertising. Why? Because the advertising to work model has to be efficient, it has to respond, and it has to find the right users through the interests that they know about them. It has to be efficient, it has to provide results on the advertiser side by getting the users that are interested in the product, and it has to be profitable and efficient also for the support. The medium, if they want advertising, the medium has to earn money, and it has to be a scalable model also. And I think there's always in many other aspects, Google has demonstrated that this is the case through its different platforms, has set up advertising models based on scalability, being efficient, and also in being efficacious. One example is this. Google has revolutionized the world of video through CPV, the possibility that users having that after 5 seconds you can skip the advertising. This is a model which which advertiser like a lot. It surprises that the percentage of users that view the full advertisement is at around 25%. 1 out of every 4 actually see those videos, but you don't have 3 others who are annoyed because you're obliging them to see a video. And this is another trend which we have to go towards with the programmatic world model. And I want to finish with a comparison by talking about the models in television. For example, in television, we measure the audience through panels. And we interrupt, we stop in order to serve advertising, and the objective is always branding. It's totally audio-visual as a format. It's efficient, yes, it is. It's relatively efficacious also, yes, and scalable is relative because the number of advertisers that are on television is relatively short. It's not scalable for all the advertising. The direct online, which we've been working on for the last 15 years, is still using panels. It's no longer an interruption, but it's intrusion rather, and in many cases excessive. And the branding is used a lot, but there's a lot of direct response. And there's a graphic format, and now there's audio-visual now that has been coming in the recent years. Is it efficient? No, I think not. Is it efficacious? I think not either. We've shown that in the prices, and I don't think it's also as scalable as it should be. And Google has a semantic interpretation, but also demographic, but it is supporting the engagement format. Engagement is the interest that the user has to do something, to cancel a video if they don't want to see it, or to launch an advertising if I click it. The advertiser pays only if the user clicks onto the advertising. That is engagement. It's very focused. Now with videos and CPV, it has a proportion of branding, but it has that graphic and textual part, and it has shown that it's efficient, efficacious, and scalable. The programmatic world now has a panel. We still use the panel as such. We still maintain that intrusion format, very focused, perhaps excessively focused on the world of direct response, and it's still based on the graphic world. I don't think it is at all efficient. I think efficacious it is partly, particularly in the purchase side, because it is buying a lot cheap, but it's not efficient for the medium and for many other mediums, and it's not fully scalable because many people are not coming in because of the fact that they don't see it as profitable. And I think the 2.0 programmatic model, which is the one which I think will triumph, and that is the definitive model, is when the data identify the audiences. We know who is who, man, woman, young, or an age group, or an interest group, or intention group. When there are enriched formats, video, expandables, formats where we are telling the user something they're not, what we always tell them, they're bored of having the same TV advert or the same banner, to tell stories, that it should have an objective, obviously, of direct response, but also branding. Without direct response is worthless. I think both have to go together, and obviously it is an audio-visual model, and that is when I think the programmatic world will become efficient, because we'll impact the users that we want with the advertising that we want to be efficient for both sides. For the audience, because for the advertisers also, because they'll be taking to their sites users that are interested, and also at that moment it will be scalable. And that is what I consider will be the future of the buying and selling of programmatic advertising. Thank you very much. Can you project my presentation, please? Thank you. Okay, good morning, everybody. I will try to do this talk or presentation in Spain, but forgive me because I'm French and my Spanish is not perfect, so I apologize if you don't fully understand, but Miguel will help me if you have any questions. Well, this is a brief presentation of the Rubicon project. I imagine that many people who don't know us, our mission really is to automate the purchasing and selling of online advertising so that people really can focus on being brilliant and creative. We think that advertising is a business that is managed by brilliant and creative people, and now we have programs and in organizations and that use time that mean that people are actually losing time. Our task is quite straightforward. As Mikel mentioned, we are connecting what we call purchasers and sellers. Our mission is a little bit special because we are only working with world clients. You all know long tail, I imagine. We are short tail. In other words, we're with 50 per day, but this has to be part of a ComScore of a top 100 or top 50. We really have two very different tools. a seller cloud and a buyer cloud. Between the two, we have this automation platform, and really we're going to talk a lot about automation. We are an American company founded 7 years ago. It's a global company, so we have about 14 branches in 9 countries, and we've opened branches in Miami, Singapore, Japan, and so forth. And this is the last slide about us, and then we will talk a little bit more about today's subject, which is real-time purchases. But we work in Europe, in France, in the UK, in Germany, and in Italy. We have quite significant business in Spain. Also, in each country, we have a market share which is around 50%. Also, globally, we have very large clients in Northern and Southern Europe, in Asia, Pacific, India, Japan, Latin America, and so forth. For Rubicon, I know this is not today's subject, but I will explain a little bit why we are talking about real-time tests. But first of all, we need a little bit of history in order to contextualize. We're talking now about the 1960s. I hadn't been born, but my parents said that in the 60s there was just one TV in my home, and these TVs it was one TV for a family of 5 people, and it was one device, therefore, and the same advertisement reached all the people who belonged to that home, and that advertisement, since we didn't have very integrated or complicated technologies, this advertisement was planned with months in advance. And what we are observing now is that in the 2000s, the same family of 5 people, there are 5 different devices. My daughter, who's 5 or 6, has an iPad. We also have a PC, a mobile, another iPad, and so each person in the household has their own device, and sometimes we even have several per person. And things that are very interesting is that advertisements now are individual, and the targeting for the advertisements is going to be different if it is me or Mikel looking at it through a different device. And the big consequence of all of this is that these advertisements are integrated in real time. And also what we are observing is that right now, if I want to buy a social inventory, I can buy on Facebook, and that is a higher level of access to traffic. If I want to buy search traffic, I use AdWords or AdSense. If I want to buy comms call traffic, that's very complicated. Why is that complicated? Because we have a fragmentation, a very large fragmentation. Each country there is about 5 mediums that are much bigger than all the others: Google, Facebook, Apple, Twitter, and Yahoo. And then afterwards, there's a very, very large fragmentation. But the other publishers, in size-wise, are about 66% of the global market shares. These 5 big ones are just taking up a third of the market. So our mission really is to give an opportunity to publishers in order to automate their sale, and really we are focusing on these very large publishers who do not belong to this third, which is made up of the biggest 5 publishers. And let's talk now about digital advertising. It's been around for about 15 years, more or less, and normally we should be the most advanced technologically speaking. What we're observing is that that's not the case. Advertising is the last market which still has to be automated. If I came from Paris this morning to buy my plane ticket, I went to last minute or whatever, and these companies, what they use technologies like Sabre Systems and Amadeus, which allow to automate that purchase and that sale in a very straightforward way. In the same way, if you want to buy a share of a company, in the New York Stock Exchange. There are technologies like NASDAQ. If you want to buy whatever, a DVD, a car, you can use your credit card. And all of this is as a result of the automation. And the same goes with eBay. eBay is a company which has been around for about 20 years. At the beginning, eBay was called garage sales. In other words, you could just buy very small things of a very small value. But right now, eBay is the biggest seller of cars in the world. There's a car that is sold on eBay every 5 minutes. Now, to talk once more of the stock exchange and NASDAQ 20 years ago was just known for being the penny stock exchange. It was, in other words, it was a company which had a very small share value. Now, on NASDAQ, we have the biggest world investment, which is Apple. And now automation really has allowed a growth in the value, and what we're trying to do now with advertising is to ensure that this automation always begins with formats or with elements which have quite a small value, and month after month or year after year we are increasing the prices, and we are seeing new formats, we are getting new tools, video with mobile, IPTV tomorrow, and really all of this can be done through this, which is automation. And how does this all work? It works with a protocol which is called real-time bidding. These are bids in real time. And so there are people who can take 30 minutes to say how it works, but I shall try and do it in just 30 seconds, because it's quite simple. When a user is visiting a site, whatever, for example, L'Équipe, which is the #1 sports magazine in France, or paper in France, and we receive some data or some information, and we also pass on that information to purchase tools. What are we passing on? The equipe.fr, the size of the creation. For example, the position also, we're going to above the fold or below the fold, and finally we'll pass on data from the user cookie. So all of these 4 groups of information will pass on to companies. There are about 150 DSP companies with a platform for exchanges, and what this DSP will do, the DSP will receive that information. They will qualify the user and qualify the site, and then will decide whether this user is interesting or not. And if it interests me, then I will make a bid. That's a real-time bid, and our task is to connect all of these bids for each print, each publication. We're going to pass them through various filters. It could be a block list. Telefonica, for example, does not want a Vodafone advertisement, and it can be done through a minimum price. I just want my traffic to be sold at a minimum price of €1, and if I receive a bid for 30 centimes, then I will reject it. And then other filters, and so in the end we will just connect up one advertisement, one bid, which is the bid which will begin that print or that publication. And that works in 80 milliseconds for each publication or printing. And just like Mikel, we are observing 30 or 40 billion publications or printing per day globally. And that is how the automation works. And so in the end, we asked ourselves what it would be like if the purchase of advertising online were as easy as buying an airline ticket, a plane ticket. What is happening now, if I'm an agency, if I'm somebody who wants to buy a little bit of traffic on El País or El Mundo newspaper, really it's going to be quite confusing, because when I begin to do the media planning, working with the creative expert and the user, and to do the negotiation with the medium, to send a fax, sign the fax, send the technical data, to put the technical data in the server, the campaign begins, and to continue the delivery of the campaign, to do the assessment of the end of the campaign and get the money. Those are all very complicated things, really. And the problem is that the online market is very large, and it is larger and larger every day, and the complexity has overcome human capacity. We have 40 million websites. We have 2.6 billion users in the world, and many other things. And the problem is that it dies out very quickly, and once it has been uploaded, 2 seconds later it's no longer. That's the big difference with the newspaper, which is something very solid and specific than that you handle in your hands. And so we have this problem. And now, to illustrate this briefly, I'm going to ask you something very simple. For you, what is high-tech technology which is supporting 80% of digital sales in each country? Any idea? An Excel file and a fax machine. That is the problem that we have, and that's the reason for which we miss this automation. Buying an advertisement on TV can already be done through machines. Buy an advertisement online is done through a machine. Well, it doesn't work very much. A fax machine, I really don't like that at all. And it's an Excel file, which is something which is very old, and it doesn't work. It's very outdated. And that is why now we're talking about bids in real time and automation. Now, to talk a little bit more about the market of the online advertising market, what we are observing, what we have seen, is that if I'm a publisher, I have part of my inventory that has been sold directly, premium, with my direct sales force. We call that premium. And 5 or 10 years ago, we had advertising networks, and that was, they had to buy the inventory to a publisher, and they sold it to the agencies with a margin in the middle that could be as big as 50%. And this had this very positive point for the publisher, and that filled in very well all the publications or prints that were well sold. What we've been observing for 4 or 5 years is real-time bidding. The first version of real-time bidding were with passive bids. In other words, I'm a publisher. I have an agreement with an SSP. I put the tags in the SAT7, and in the CPM is quite weak, and I get an amount of money. But that is the first version, really, which works, but which is not very interesting, really. And what we are observing now in the last 2 years is the private marketplace, and these are direct agreements between a seller, the publisher, and a purchaser, a buyer, which could be an agency, and they have direct agreements with a guaranteed volume of invoicing, of turnover, and that can be done through various mechanisms of purchasing and sale. And that is really changing things, because sellers are taking this real-time bidding protocol in a much more active way than before. They are going to be the engines of the sale of their inventories, and this will really allow an increase in CPMs. And so we are progressively going from monetizing sales to automating also the sales of more premium inventories with much bigger CPMs. Let's talk a little bit about data. Really, there are different ways of getting revenues or improving the quality of the inventories, and we will talk about that with a little bit more detail. But really, through this pyramid, we are observing that the quality of inventories through the selections is much bigger, because we have much bigger mediums that can can have a bigger, more premium formats and sizes than before. I remember that 3 years ago we were just monetizing at the end of the page, and now with real-time bidding we're doing cover schemes, video expanse, and many other formats which allow this purchasing and sales for branding promoters. And we're going from a direct response market to a branding market, which is much more interesting for everybody. We have some examples through Europe. There we have 6, and I'm not going to talk about all 6, but there is one. There are some that are quite interesting. The first is The Guardian. It's a very large UK newspaper, and this was a pioneer, really, of a large newspaper for real-time bidding. And right now The Guardian has 20% of the sales force of The Guardian is just focused on selling its inventory programmatically. 20%. It's not something. This is not a small thing. This is a big trend, really, that is occurring, and this publisher has clearly understood it. And now they have 20% of their sales force that are really only selling in a programmatic context. And another example is called La Place Media. It's a consortium of French publishers that got together, and they understood that one publisher individually faced with Google cannot survive. It's not big enough in order to be able to capture the investment or the revenues of agencies. And so we have this concept of publishers co-op, of an alliance of publishers, and now within La Place Media there are about 150 publishers within a common platform, and they are selling their inventory in bulk. They're generating 500 million prints or publications per month with just premium publishers, very large publishers, through the programmatic system. Another example is eBay. eBay has a very large positive point, and that is that they have a huge amount of data. And so if you go to eBay and you're looking in the search engine for car roll-on, roll-off in Madrid, it means that we are very interested in a car in Madrid, and so we have very important data there for an agency, for an advertiser or user. It does very precise targeting for that type of user. So what kind of recommendations could we give to publishers, if there are any publishers in this audience here? Well, really, with the programmatic system, you have to consider 4 very important things. Firstly, the formats. Real-time bidding began 4 years ago just to sell the relatively weak quality inventory with very standard formats. And now, once more, we're capturing formats that are bigger, of expand schemes, master, and all of this. And the thing is that in Southern Europe, in France, in Italy, in Spain, and Belgium, we are seeing publishers that really are taking up this strategy. I work for a US company in the United States of America to sell cover on through the programmatic system is impossible. We don't have the volumes in, as de Gaulle said in France. We have ideas, so we have very big formats that are allowing this branding through real-time bidding. And another thing is the visibility or viewability. This is very big, and I'm sure it will be even more important next year. Right now, every advertiser, when they want to buy an inventory, they want to buy an inventory that will be seen. If it is not seen, they're not interested. And that is why we are seeing publishers who are doing audits of their inventories, and they will just place within the exchange room inventories that are very well viewed, or they will sell it an impression that is more important than a medium one. And the third matter is data. Data is very important. We have already talked about the fact that all the functioning of real-time bidding works through cookies. So if there's no cookies tomorrow, there's no real-time bidding. In the same way, the publishers have to take this matter, and every premium publisher has data that are their own, that is of great importance, and really they have to be much more active in the sales of their data. This doesn't mean selling the data in standalone in a unique way, but to do a combination of media plus data. So I'm L'Equipe, and I'm going to sell my page just for the users who are interested in buying a car in 2 months' time. And that has a value, a very significant value. And finally, to work on what is called successes. So through real-time bidding, you can have preferred prices for some buyers, but you can work also with first look. In other words, give a priority to a buyer chosen because he's available to make an investment and guarantee X thousand euros, or to give private access to a buyer. For the publishers, to attract new buyers with which they are not working at the moment, reduces the costs because we're talking about automation, and this allows a reduction in the costs to work on this matter of creativity through new formats and really to replicate what is being done in the premium channel through the programmatic channel. We have no technological limitation in what it can be sold or bought. And agencies with new entities that belong to the agency, which we call trading desks, and in the end to close agreements, which can be global agreements with an agency, like for example with Abast or Archipel or Bivakia Nowdec, which is the Bivac trading desk, to do agreements that are more vertical and that will combine premium sales, direct sales, and indirect sales through real-time bidding. And finally, how do the publishers have to prepare? First of all, to find dedicated resources. We are observing a new generation of profiles that can be a yield manager, revenue optimization people who have a technological profile or analytical profile and who will do the optimizations through the data. These are the keys to success for publishers. And the other thing is that we're talking about things that are quite new for everybody. There isn't a Bible of what is good and what is bad, really. And so we have to try to test out and to be very pragmatic so that really it is today's tests that will bring the successes of the future. And finally, you're going to be working with a technological supplier, and you have to bear in mind that this technological supplier also has to be your consulting company, and he's there to help you. And if he's not proposing these kinds of things, then you will have to change, and that's it. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Vivian. Thank you very much, Mikel. Now we will begin with the question and answer session, and I would like to begin it by asking you a question about what you think about the commercial union done by the media, like the publishing, like Prisa, like Vocento, in order to do real-time bidding and programmatic purchasing. Mikel, for example, could you answer that question? I think it's a very good initiative. Julien mentioned it, the PMP, the private market prices. This is the sophistication of a programmatic sale. I fully agree with it. I think there is a need to guarantee an inventory quality that's necessary, but for it to work in the long term, it really needs a differentiating layer. Particularly for data, this is fundamental that any programmatic platform has to incorporate in a private marketplace. I think it is also important to add different formats. You cannot have these kinds of inventories to sell sales at the bottom of the page. I think they have to be premium formats, data, and these are the fundamental elements. I think I fully agree. This alliance of publishers, we've had this for 2 years now in France and also in countries like Denmark, in the Czech Republic. Italy is going to start next month with a company called G5, Golden 5, and I think that this is very positive because each publisher really is a nano compared to the big ones. But really, to have a big added value, it has to be, first of all, through an independent company, and that is what we have with Plus Media in France. It belongs to 20% to each one of the 5 owners, and so there's no subjectivity really among the owners. And really, for the demand not to see it as a poster more than anything else, you need things that are really very different, like new formats or exclusive data, like any type of innovation or positive things which will allow CPM growth and give the demand an added value which they do not have through premium or direct sales. Now we'll begin with questions from the floor. Go ahead. Do you have a microphone over there? My name is Eva González. I'm a publisher. I belong to a small publishing company. Well, there are 4 digital publications that we have, and the question that I have for you is as follows. Given I've seen that you talk about real-time bidding markets and you talk about various different agents within the real-time bidding markets, where are there platforms, the digital platforms like this that are being launched by large multinational like VPP? And to give you an example, success. What is success? Success is DSP. It is the M Group, Programmatic Purchasing Group, which is the agency for advertising for VPP. Well, it's the DSP, but I think in many cases they've begun with a network strategy to buy a network but success internationally is the Group M DSP. They work with Abnexus technology. There's an agreement with Abnexus, so they work with the Abnexus technology. Another question? At the back there is a question. Hello. Well, I'm an audiovisual contents technician. I was struck by what you said about cookies, because I would like to understand, for example, when I search in Amazon, for example, I want to buy a tripod and I search tripods in Amazon. From that moment in time up until a few days later, constantly all the banners on all my sites are are full of tripods. Is that provoked by the cookies because they are following my profile and all my searches, and they make the most of all my way of browsing in order to invade me with objects or products that might be of interest to me? Thank you. That is called retargeting. That is a big thing in online advertising. It is quite simple. They are seeing the last sites that a person has looked up, and even the time that person has not purchased, they are going to make bids in order to be in touch with you again. There is a very famous company which is called Criteo, which is the world leader doing this. I don't like retargeting very much. I'm a normal user of internet also, and I think that there is a very big commercial pressure through retargeting publishing, and really it is the stakeholders that have an experience and a bigger technological knowledge, because they are qualifying every user from 0 to 20. And a user will have a different value if it has only been in a page of adidas.com or if they have made a basket. Or if they are in the process of buying a 3,000 euro plane ticket, and so there will be different bids therefore to be in touch with you as efficiently as possible. In any case, I think that there is the part of the retargeting that is not bad, and that has to do with the cookie life. That cookie that shows them what you liked has to have a limited life. You cannot be there 6 months with the same cookie working, because that is retargeting that really is very tiresome. But there's part of the retargeting that's not bad, and that company has shown that it has done things pretty well, and as is reflected by its value in the stock exchange. I'm Nacho Sanchez, and you've been talking about cookies and retargeting, and I develop apps, and in apps there aren't any cookies. Well, there are, but well, it's not been invented so well. Well, on Facebook they have my profile, but I open up the El País, and there's an advertisement that has nothing to do with me, and I've been suggested psychologists or people to help me to repair my computer. I would almost prefer to have retargeting. So what is the equivalent of cookies in apps? There are DSKs that put in cookies in apps now, and they are used. It's not so widespread yet, but it is beginning to be used. It has been developed. What you mentioned is that advertising without data, I think too much is retargeting. With too much data, it's retargeting. Without data, it's irrelevance. The other day with COO in Facebook, the CEO of Facebook said that she considered that 40% of the advertising picks that we receive online are irrelevant. And I think it's quite a bit more. I would dare to say quite a bit more, but that's a feeling. I don't have any objective data to say that really. But I think the relevance is the consequence of the lack of data, the lack of information of the users, and it's also the consequence of a model which, as I mentioned before, is based on television, which is one impact after another. It might not impact you, it might not matter to you, but in the end, to the last person, it will matter, and then I've achieved my objective. I think that's a little bit it. And next question, please. Yes. Well, my name is Ángel Alonso. As a result of what you were saying, that various publishers get together in order to get their inventory together and to get more formats and data, couldn't you also be generating barriers for smaller advertising, which when they access to these publishers have to go through a bigger agency, or is that not the case? Well, the interesting thing with automation is that if you have a small agency, you need a TSB. There isn't a minimum in big investments for TSP, and tomorrow you'll be able to buy that inventory that normally is limited just to the very large agencies. But what we're observing is that Plus Media, for example, every month they have prints that come from more than 10,000 advertisers per month, and these are very large volumes. And given that the premium a publisher per month has just 50 or 80 campaigns of different advertising, and real-time bidding allows you to capture investments of much smaller advertisers that have a very significant value, and really that is the sum of all of these small advertisers that will be big investments for the publishers. And that is one of the positive points for the demand, and that is to facilitate access to an inventory which normally is more reserved for very large agencies. You work with very large publishers, so what I can see, what is being sold is a democratization of the market, because there's an automation that saves costs. Indeed, that should democratize everything. And what I can see is alliances, and either you get into a network, or the small publishers would have the same barriers that they would have in a direct negotiation. The small publishers has always had a difficult time of it. It's always been complicated to be small publishers. The advertising networks really arise because of small publishers aggregating, and to be able to trade through the different channels. They can come in through any SSP platform now. There are solutions to aggregate small publishers. Many worked with affiliations. Historically, they did so. Affiliation, unfortunately, for those who work in affiliation, is losing ground, mainly because of the programmatic world, because a large proportion of the traditional advertisers have gone to programmatics, and now there are solutions that are rising of SSPs that are specific for small publishers, and that does exist. And what they do is the same, to aggregate their inventory and to place it on the exchange. It's a commercialization network that is automated. Any further questions? At the back. Hello, my name is Luisina. I have several questions in one. How is television going to influence the fact that they use two devices through internet, the multi-screen format in programmatic purchasing, buying? Do you know? Is that the future? Well, that is a big challenge. Well, right now, it is now already able to do a synchronization through a display campaign and a TV campaign, but we have to talk about IPTV here. In a perfect world, each device which has an IP address can work with real-time bidding, and you also need the cookie. But there are companies like Utility or Banner Connect that are already doing that synchronization between television and display. This can already be done. Well, in Spain, we're really at the very beginning of this, and in Europe, yes, of course, we're just starting. This is the challenge, the separation by device. And also now, through smart TVs, we are substituting TV broadcast television consumption or internet through the same device, the same machine. And so that is the moment when it is going to become important, but the separation by device is something that is significant. I have a solution now where you can see separate users depending on browsing with mobile devices, tablet, telephone or computer. You can see whether it's the same user depending on the browsing, but the browsing on TV is in different. I'm talking about smart TV. Perhaps Manuel knows more about this than myself. You can ask him. Any more questions? Well, that's all. Time is up. So thank you very much, Mikel, for his time, and all the participants. Thank you.